Thank you to everybody who is tuning in to the Spotlight conversation with me and the New York State Attorney General, Tish James. Really, only the Wrap can create the warmth and dynamism of a live event, but virtually. So once again, because we're all dealing with COVID-19, so a big thank you to the Wrap for having me and for allowing me to do this conversation. The theme is of this entire conversation and conference is represent. And I was kind of shocked to learn that Tish James is the first woman of color to hold statewide office in New York and the first woman ever to be elected Attorney General. She is currently running to be the first female African-American governor, not just of New York, which is where she's running, of course, but if she wins, she'd be the first in any state. So please join me in welcoming Tish James. Do I call you Madam Attorney General? I feel like I call you Tish. What do you prefer?
Tish.
Fantastic. Well,
Everyone
thanks for
calls
joining me.
Thank you for having me.
We are so excited to have you at the Power Women Summit. And there's a number of young women as well, because this is about conversation and mentoring and learning about leadership as well. So I guess my first question for you would be about these hundreds of young women who are taking part. What's your message to them? You've had a very storied career through politics.
For New York women, and particularly young women, it's really about change. It's about recognizing and understanding their passion, and it's about following their dream. And it's also about breaking through glass ceilings and let individuals know that when women lead, things happen, things change. We transform lives. All throughout my career, as a former public defender, as a staff attorney in Albany, as a city council member, as a public advocate, and now as the Attorney General, it's about exhibiting and demonstrating courage and affecting change in the lives of others. And it's about recognizing that you have to speak truth to power, and you have to think about others before you think about yourself. You have to think about all of those young little girls that I've met on the streets of New York City and all of upstate New York, who have dreams and who have passions, but they're concerned, they're afraid, they live in the shadow of others. And I tell them to live for themselves and to think big and to think beyond New York State and to be on the full stage and just to demonstrate their power. And that's what they continue to do each and every time. So I am honored and privileged to be on the show, and I'm honored and privileged to meet so many young girls who say that I've inspired them. But if I can make a difference in the life of another young child, then I've done my part.
Why are you running to be governor of New York?
Because New Yorkers need change, because the status quo will not do. You know, it's really critically important that as someone who has demonstrated courage and leadership and taken on tough fights all throughout my career, that those young girls that you speak of, that they know that they see me, and more importantly, that they see a governor of the state of New York who's not afraid, who's fearless. And she's fearless because she really wants to see change in the life of others, because she wants to build out the middle class, because she wants to recover from COVID fairly, because she wants all voices to be heard, because she wants an environment where we have clean water and clean energy, and a clean air for individuals to enjoy, and because she wants to build out a middle class, and because we want to transform a criminal justice system which is broken. For all those reasons, that's why I'm running for the governor of the state of New York, because the status quo cannot do, will not do, and we must recover again in a more fair and balanced approach and manner in the state of New York.
Do you feel like you've accomplished everything you set out to do and you want to do and you should do as Attorney General?
So, as the Attorney General, I've taken on some big fights. Taken on a previous administration, a Donald Trump administration, that was a real threat to our democracy and continues to be a threat to our democracy. We've taken on the NRA. We've taken on the NRA because the NRA is a not-for-profit in the state of New York, and because they turned the NRA into a personal piggy bank, not for its original mission, but basically to enrich the lives of others. We've taken on the environment, protecting, again, water and air and energy. We've represented the rights of women, reproductive rights. We've led in the nation in filing amicus briefs on behalf of like-minded attorney generals who believe in reproductive choice and who believe that a woman's decision to have an abortion should be between her doctor, and her faith. And we've taken on big tech, and we've taken on the opioid crisis. Again, reaching a settlement of $1.5 billion to individuals who are struggling in the throes of addiction. And there's more to be taken on in the state of New York.
So why not stay and continue on as Attorney General?
Because there's so many challenges in the state of New York, and what we need is bold and brave and courageous leadership in the state of New York. And as the Attorney General, I've seen some of the problems with state agencies. I've seen that they've been underfunded, understaffed. We've had to pay out millions, if not billions, in dollars as a result of agencies, the failure of agencies, again, to have leadership because they are understaffed and because there has been no vision on a statewide level. And what we need now more than ever is a governor, such as myself, who will put forth change, will put forth brave and bold leadership, and who will respect the workforce of the state of New York and will deliver for New Yorkers and build out our middle class and provide jobs for New Yorkers who are struggling right now as we recover from COVID.
Do you have a guiding principle, a thing that you sort of always come back to?
My North Star is simple justice, sweet and simple justice. It was that mantra that led me as a city council member to challenge Mayor Bloomberg when he wanted to overturn the term limits. When I uncovered the biggest scandal in the city of New York, known as City Time, and we recovered $500 million for taxpayers in the city of New York. As the public advocate, when we passed a law because we believe equal pay for equal work, and we banned salary history so that women can be paid the same as men for basically doing the same job. When we sued the city of New York, the Department of Education, on behalf of special needs children. And as the Attorney General, taking on the NRA, taking on the environment, standing up to Donald Trump, and standing up against the most powerful governor in the state of New York on behalf of young women.
So, Andrew Cuomo, some media outlets have seemed to indicate that your investigation into the former governor might have been politically motivated, meaning investigation, he steps down, and now you're running basically for the job he had.
This report was conducted by two independent attorneys whose resumes are beyond reproach. And it's unfortunate that the former governor is not and has not taken responsibility for his own conduct. These two attorneys who conducted this investigation did it based on the facts, an analysis of the facts and the application of the law. And they concluded that, in fact, the former governor, Andrew Cuomo, his administration was toxic, and that Andrew Cuomo himself engaged in sexual harassment. It's also important that individuals understand that the previous report that we conducted, that my office conducted, charges that the Cuomo administration undercounted the number of individuals who died in nursing homes. It's unfortunate that the former governor refuses to take responsibility for any of his conduct. And the document, the report, both reports, the nursing home report and the independent report, basically speaks for itself. And I stand behind those reports. I stand behind the fact that vulnerable individuals in nursing homes died as a result of failed leadership, and two, that the women that were part of the investigation, again, were victims of Governor Cuomo's conduct and his behavior, and I believe those women. And I would hope that Governor Cuomo would move on. And it's important also that individuals understand and they compare Governor Cuomo's investigation that he conducted of Eliot Spitzer, as well as the former Attorney General Eric Schneiderman. His investigations were all internal. His investigations were done by his own staff. His investigations were done in a limited period, and then he too announced that he was going to run for higher office. So now he wants to turn the spotlight on me. I'd be more than happy to compare my record and my reports against the former governor who continues to hide behind an attorney and who continues to engage again in hyperbole and charge politics. Nothing can be further from the truth. Politics stops at the door of the office of Attorney General.
Can you talk about the Trump investigation?
What I can tell you is that there are 2 investigations that have been reported. There's a civil investigation with respect to properties that the former president owns and operates, properties that were devalued for the purposes of taxation and properties that were overvalued for the purposes of getting benefits from banks and insurance companies. And then on the criminal side, working with the Manhattan District Attorney Cy Vance with respect to, in fact, whether or not he engaged in any illegality. As you know, his chief financial officer was indicted, and our investigation with Cy Vance continues.
So beyond continues, can you give us any more details than that?
No, because it's an ongoing investigation. That criminal action is still ongoing, and we're still working with the Manhattan District Attorney.
There seem to be a lot of people from Brooklyn who are running to be governor. I mean, like, it sounds funny, but it's true. I mean, we have the current governor is going to try to keep the position, Governor Hochul, the public advocate, Jumaane Williams, Mayor Bill de Blasio has decided to run for governor as well. Why do you think you're better than, listen, I can name some that you're definitely better than off the top of my head, but I'll let you say, why you? What's your sell and selling point to a person who just doesn't know who they want to support?
So let me just say that Governor Hochul is from Buffalo. Mayor de Blasio.
No, I know she's not from Brooklyn.
And Tom Suozzi just entered the race. He just entered the race about an hour and a half ago, and he's from Long Island.
Yes, I'm from Long Island, so I know.
But this is really this is not a race between Governor Hochul and I. This is really a race for the vision of the state of New York, who has the vision, who has the ability and the courage and the experience to get things done.
Why is yours better than hers?
Again, as a former public defender, as someone who worked in state government, I was counsel to the corporations, authorities, and commissions, counsel to children and families. As a former city council member, serving 10 years, again, going up against some powerful interest in the state of New York. As the public advocate of the state of New York, I demonstrated courage, and as the Attorney General, I've taken on powerful interest. And so what we need now more than ever is, again, fundamental and transformational change in the lives of New Yorkers. And I have the experience and the record to prove it and to demonstrate it. And someone who is, again, fearless when it comes to taking on these powerful interests, which continue to hold back New Yorkers. Wages are stagnated. Right now, New Yorkers are concerned about inflation. They're concerned about prices at the gas pump. And we need to confront each and every issue because we need to grow our middle class more than ever, and we need to create middle class jobs so that individuals can sustain families. And as the governor, I will do that because I've demonstrated the ability to do that all throughout my public career.
Governor Hochul became the first female governor because obviously Governor Cuomo stepped down. I'm curious if that presents a bigger challenge to you that for people who sometimes can't see women in certain roles, now she's in, right? And does that make it harder for you? Does it make it easier for you in the race?
Women basically get things done, but the issue really is about, just issues facing New Yorkers every day. And so each and every day I wake up focusing on issues that affect New Yorkers. And what I heard during the holidays is how, Thanksgiving dinner costs New Yorkers more. What I heard is regarding salaries that cannot sustain families. What I heard about was prices at the gas pump. I heard about inflation. I heard about concern about COVID. People are suffering from COVID fatigue in the state of New York. And what we need, obviously, is to move this state forward, again, in a way that can transform our government. Government needs to be more public-facing, and they need to address the felt needs of New Yorkers. And it's been a long time since we've done that. And that's why we need fundamental change in the state of New York. And based upon my record and my ability to get things done as the next governor of the state of New York, I have the experience and the record to move that agenda forward.
A couple of weeks ago, I would have said, listen, I feel like, in fact, I think I did say, I feel like we're coming out the other side of COVID. Now, of course, there's a new strain that's been identified. Not really clear at this moment exactly how potentially terrible it could be. What do you support in terms of minimizing the damage that a new strain could have? I mean, Times Square is just opening up to tourists, many of them, by the way, not wearing masks, I gotta tell you.
So, listen, the vaccination rates in upstate New York continue to concern me. And most recently, I issued a statement with respect to the vaccination rates. And we need to use the largesse of government to purchase home test kits for individuals all throughout the state of New York and provide them to businesses as we recover from COVID. COVID-19. We also need to have trusted and authentic voices talk about vaccinations, which is absolutely critical to our recovery. But it's also important that we recognize the hesitation that exists given the history of medical experimentation in this country. We also need to address those rural counties in upstate New York where transportation needs continue to be a challenge in the state of New York. And so we need to, again, address the high rate of vaccination, the high rate of infection rates in upstate New York. Everyone tends to focus on New York City, and I am from New York City and love New York City. But if you go in upstate New York, as I traveled, again, seeking to heal New York and seeking to provide resources to those who are struggling with struggling from the opioid epidemic, we need to address COVID-19 and its infection rate in upstate New York, which is challenging our economy. And that's what we should do, and that's what I would do as governor of the state of New York.
How many years have you been in politics now?
Oh my goodness, it's been a while. I've dedicated my life to public service. You know, as someone growing up in Brooklyn, I grew up with humble beginnings. My mother and father who hailed from the South with limited education, my father who was a maintenance person, and my mother who scrubbed floors and then ultimately worked for the telephone company. I mean, they instilled in us hard work, but they also instilled in us public service and the ability to give back. And when you give back and when you think about others before you think about yourself, that is when you do your greatest job. And all throughout my life and all throughout my career, it's about, again, improving the lives of others, particularly children and particularly individuals who are struggling under the weight of poverty. And all throughout my career, whether it was as public defender, as a staff attorney, as a city council member, as a public advocate, now as attorney general, it's been giving back all that I have benefited from.
What do you think has been the biggest lesson that you've learned from politics? I've spent my career interviewing politicians, and there's never been one where I thought, like, whoa, I want to get into politics at the end of the interview. I was like, mostly I'm like, oh, politics seems just extremely stressful and sometimes extremely miserable.
Yeah, politics has gotten a bad rap. Listen, in New York State, scandal after scandal after scandal, and we've become the laughingstock, and it's unfortunate. It is a noble and honorable profession to witness before your eyes something that I was responsible for and joined with others, providing universal school lunch for children. Children who came to me and said, Tish, I stand on a line where I'm stigmatized. I stand on a line which is known as the po' folks line. Kids who often hid and were ashamed to stand on that line. They had a card in order to be eligible for free lunch. And individuals who, were not poor were able to pay for their lunch. I wanted to get rid of those lines. I did not want any child stigmatized. The only thing I wanted to hear was bellies grumbling so that we can feed all children. And working again, and going up against the mayor of the city of New York, Mayor de Blasio, we were able to effect universal school lunch in the city of New York. That's something that I would like to effect all throughout the state of New York. Seeing affordable housing for individuals who are struggling, dealing with individuals who are struggling with mental illness, removing over 2,500 guns from the streets of New York State, and going after criminals and individuals who will peddle drugs and arms on the streets of New York State, working with law enforcement. That's a proud moment for me, and that's something I'm really proud of. And that's something that I will be proud of and push on, and push aggressively on as the governor of the great state of New York.
We started with your message for some of the younger people who are attending, because there's a lot of lessons in leadership and also mentoring that happens in this conference. But I'm curious for the women here. You know, it's a powerful woman summit. So talk to me about your messaging for powerful women. What advice do you give to the powerful women who are watching?
So whenever you step into a room, own the room. Make sure people respect you. Make sure you create a seat at the table. You know, I remember Shirley Chisholm's quote, who basically said, if they don't give you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair. I want to change that a little bit. I want to create my own table and bring my own friends to the table. All of my friends, everyone, Black, white, Latino, Asian, women, men, it really doesn't matter. All voices should be heard at the seat of government, and they should recognize the power of government. And they should recognize that now, at this point, this transformational point in the history of New York, we can affect change in the lives of others. And we can do it with a visionary, someone with bold ideas, but more importantly, someone who has a record to get things done. Politicians often talk the talk. All you have to do is look at my record, and it speaks for itself. Each and every time, people have underestimated me, and we've continued to overperform. Again, changing the lives of others, and again, building out a middle class where people can sustain families. That's my vision for New York. And with infrastructure funds and the Build Back Better funds that are coming, we can do that here in the state of New York, focusing on upstate New York and rural counties where individuals are struggling with poverty, where they don't have economic engines, where the only game in town, unfortunately, is opioid and drug addiction, where people are dying from overdoses as a result of fentanyl. We can and must do better. But it takes a visionary, and it takes someone who's fearless. And again, it takes someone like Letitia James, a strong woman who's not afraid to say it, speak it, and do it.
Think you're going to win?
Yes, because over 20 years, I've won each and every election, behind in the polls and behind in money. Been fueled by individuals like women around humble tables who basically said we've got to vote for Tish James. I've been fueled by people power, a grassroots movement, never by money. And I know that there are individuals in this race who've raised tons of money from individuals, but we need to speak to campaign finance and repealing Citizens United, because there's just too much money in politics. And what we need are small donations and individuals who care about our government, and individuals who are not beholden to big money lobbyists and or big money lawyers, but are beholden to women who sit around a table each and every day struggling with their bills, families who struggle with paying groceries and concerned about educational outcomes. We need more elected officials and more public servants who are truly servants, who basically serve others and not themselves. That's the record of Letitia James, and that's how she's going to win.
Letitia James is the Attorney General of the state of New York, and she is running to be governor. It's so nice to talk to you.
It's
Thanks
nice
for
to talk
joining
to you
us.
as well.
You bet.
Thank you so much.